metabolism, an enzyme is going to slide along the DNA here and try to read this DNA sequence. What happens when it hits the bump? It's going to cause this thing to fall off and not be able to read the rest of the sequence. That could then in turn deactivate the gene. So now whatever this gene was controlling, it will no longer be able to properly control it. You can't read this sequence anymore. So dimers are horrible things to inherit, but they're the primary things that happen when ultraviolet exposure has been, given for long periods of time. And this doesn't have to happen during DNA replication. This can be happening during non-replication periods of time. So one other thing that it could have a problem with is if that dimerization is severe enough, it will also block DNA polymerase. So we may not even be able to copy this side. We might get to this bump here and DNA polymerase will be knocked off, and then the gene will be stopped short, just like that. And this other side will be short however much of a sequence. So there's a lot of bad things that can happen. And typically we've found that this kind of mutation is strongly linked with a disease called xeroderma pigmentosa. Has anyone heard of that before? Most of you probably would never hear of it because the people who have this affliction, you'll never get to meet them. You know why? No, they're alive. It's not contagious.
You can't go outside?
They can't go outside. If they go out into the sunlight, they can get severely burned even if they're exposed for just a second or two. So if you have an extreme case of this disease, just a second of sunlight can cause third-degree burns on your skin. So how can these people survive is that they live in complete darkness or use lights that don't have any ultraviolet output whatsoever. Sometimes they can get around with red light. Red light's pretty low energy output. Imagine living your whole life in the dark, just seeing like red light. You can't go outside ever. That's why you'll never meet them. But that's only for extreme cases. Some people have milder cases. They just lather up with, 3,000 sunblock and they're okay. The rest of them, they can't get outside at all. And their eyes are just as sensitive to this as their skin. So imagine you walk outside and you're blind just by walking out the door. That's a horrible disease to have. And it turns out that we figured out that it actually is a recessive condition. So if you have recessive